Welcome, everybody, to the Fantasy Formula, and we're live ahead of qualifying for the Austrian Grand Prix. I'm coming to you from my nice, cool basement in Boston, but Terry, you're coming to us from the coffee corner sauna. How are you holding up? Uh-oh, we've already broken Terry. Terry, I can't quite hear you. I don't know if it's me or if it's you're still on mute down on the page there.
No, I wasn't on mute. Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, you're good now.
Oh, good. It's just probably just crackling fiber optic cables due to the heat. That's all.
Fantastic. Well, we have an exciting hour ahead. Lots of decisions to make. I know a few of you are still considering 4A lineups. There's still a debate raging on between Antonelli and Hamilton as the 2X driver because Lewis has a slightly better chance of getting 0.3 million as teams are trying to build up their budget as fast as they can ahead of the next sprints. And then we've also got this battle between Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren that could jumble up some of our second constructor items. So lots to unpack. Let's break down free practice 3 because over the Friday sessions, it looked like McLaren were running ahead of Ferrari, but Lewis really put in a few good laps here in FP3, taking P3 behind two Mercedes that were pretty well adrift for most of the session. So Mercedes are locked and loaded for me as the top constructor this week. McLaren slotting in next, and then Verstappen and Leclerc after that. Terry, you had mentioned off air that Charles Leclerc still looks a bit off, and that could hold Ferrari back. What are you seeing from Charles in this session?
Just once again, he doesn't seem comfortable, does he? So yeah, we know about the brakes. We talked about this many times. We're expecting some differences with his driving, how he's doing. He looks shot of confidence, and to be honest, we see all the sims lean towards Ferrari, but it is one Ferrari at the moment for me. I still feel the two McLarens are in the mix. I did an article yesterday on McLaren's race pace being a lot better than what it kind of showed before. That's come out in FP3 a bit more, to be honest. So I think McLaren as a team feel quite strong, but then Lewis feels like he's a deciding factor in this at the moment, doesn't he?
How do you feel about McLaren reliability? Because in FP1, Lando had a mysterious hydraulic leak, and he just hasn't had a clean weekend all season. Is there that little bit in the back of your mind that questions if McLaren can make it the whole race distance?
To be honest, you just think they're going to turn a corner, but every single weekend there's something. I saw someone put a stat up on Lando since he'd kind of inherited the number one, and you look at all the problems he's had going back. I think it's like 9 or 10 races. There's always been an issue he's been managing in some sort. So just when you think, yes, they're going to obviously, turn that corner and get it back. We know they got battery fixes, but we also know that battery fix that they got from Mercedes isn't in Lando's car because it would occur a penalty. So that's what you back in mind. Would they just be better just giving them a penalty? Who knows? They might do after qualifying today. So I think for me, it's just a huge question mark on them. But then just as much up and down the grid, these new engines are doing that. You look at the Red Bull, Ford powertrain, Audi. We could sit here and make a case for reliability up and down the grid, really, to some extent. Mercedes, I mean, that Mercedes hasn't run in high altitude, hot weather yet. So between all of them, you could literally sit here and make an argument about reliability to sway you either way.
The Lando battery is the thing that worries me the most about them. Mercedes brought this upgraded battery to hopefully improve reliability, and Lando is currently opting not to take it because he's at his limit. It would lead to an engine penalty, but if he does choose to take it, it would put him lower on the grid. He could potentially be flying back up through the grid with overtakes and positions gained. So there might be a few people out there thinking about final fix if he chose to take it. But on the flip side, if he doesn't take it, that's just one more weekend where we can't totally trust McLaren. So definitely a lot to decide.
I don't see where he takes it with the run up in races. You wouldn't expect to take it at Silverstone for obvious reasons. So I think a lot hinges on where he finishes up. If you see him, sort of second, third row, maybe they just take it and just take the hit on it and go, Joe, let's get it in there. I think that's an option for him. I think a lot relies on this qualifying. So a final fix may be on the cards for Lando with that in mind. But I don't see on the races coming up where he gets a new battery, which is good for him to do, to be honest.
Yeah, next time out is a sprint weekend at Silverstone. Yep. You don't have free practice sessions to get a whole lot out of it. So he would have to wait several more weeks to make that happen. And can they afford to wait that long? So we might see a surprise change for Lando later today. The chat is alive already. Alexandra, you love being part of the community. We love having you in the community. Thanks so much for coming. Mike, you're too kind calling us gurus. We'll see. We'll see after this weekend if we're gurus or two guys about to bounce out of the top 500.
Yeah, ask me at the end of the season.
All right. Geslick, you want to know if I'm going for a 4A? I could tell you I'm definitely not going for a 4A, but I would definitely get the side eye from Terry if I didn't at least ask you for a few likes first before I showed you exactly what I go with. So the like, and we'll reveal our lineups in just a little while. All right. Right before we came on, the post FP3 Sims came out from F1 Fantasy Tools. This is great because it usually comes out a few minutes into the hour and we're scrambling, but this came out just before we came on air. A few changes stand out to me. Ferrari now have grown this lead over McLaren, so it looks like F1 Fantasy Tools agreeing with our assessment earlier that Ferrari could be a bit better as a constructor asset, maybe a little bit extra DNF percentage baked into McLaren based off of what we saw on Friday. And then as we go top to bottom here, Antonelli reigning supreme is the top 2x boosted option for the week. Hamilton not too far behind if you see an opportunity to sneak him in ahead of his home race. Then you have to go a fair distance down to the midfield where there's a pretty big drop off. You go from the 20s to the teens. And then from Isaac Hadjar basically all the way down, there's maybe 7 points between all of the rest of the field. This is where I wonder if the Sims are totally accurate because they're predicting, if you come all the way across to the overtakes, no more than 4 overtakes on average across the field. But when we look at Austria from recent seasons, it's one of the top 6 to 8 tracks each of the last 3 seasons. So I wonder if just these 2026 regs have crossed up the Sims as they predict that the lap by lap result that then turns into the overtake. So we might have higher scores than what we see in the team calculator. Terry, what do you think about overtaking at this circuit? Does it feel like the Sims are maybe underplaying the overtake potential here?
Yeah, I mean, there's some great opportunities, isn't there, to overtake? Yeah, run up to turn 3. You've got turn 4 around the outside as well. Final corner coming down, start finish straight. So there's definitely places you can overtake. Boost is obviously going to play a part here. We've got 4 straight mode activations. Majority of them are in and around where the old DRS zones were. So going up to turn 2, just after turn 2 on the old DRS zone there, sector 2, and then on the final bend, start finish straight sort of area. So I think with the activation right on the end, you've got that 1 second. If you're within 1 second, you get the boost. I think that could play a part, certainly into some of these corners there. So I think they might be underplaying it. I think there's some great opportunities. The only thing that are they wondering is a bit like DRS, will it cancel everybody out because you know where the overtakes are going to come from? So you can reserve battery and energy and actually launch a counter-attack on that point of view. So I think we're seeing that a lot more now as these cars become more predictable. It's one of the things we talked about early on in the season. As the teams learn to understand, they also learn how to defend better. Once they're more predictable, you can start deploying energy in the right way on a defensive strategy as well as an attacking strategy. So some of the changes that have been made, I think, have kind of clipped the wings in how good the overtaking action's been, which is one of the fears we had.
It's going to be a big question here because so many of our lineup debates this week are between Hadjar versus Gasly. Do we bring in Bortoletto over Hulkenberg? It's all these guys that, according to the Sims, are separated by 2 points or less. So then can we predict that there's something in it that maybe the Sims aren't seeing as we set our final lineups for the week?
It feels like there's a lot of these coin tosses again, which we talk about, where you're going to fall lucky if one lasts a race and one happens to have a reliability issue. We know that Audi have already brought their engine upgrades. They snuck it in Barcelona, which we weren't told about at the time. So that's had the upgrade. We know that Ferrari got the engine upgrades. I saw someone earlier saying, do I think that Charles is sandbagging? I don't. I just think Lewis is much more comfortable with the car. I think Charles is struggling. But I also think Ferrari have been doing a lot of correlation data, especially yesterday, and started turning that car up today. So I still believe there's some reserve in there in terms of what they can do. It's just a case of, can Charles get on the pace and extract it? And then can Lewis go that even more further over one lap and get close to pole and close to the two Mercedes drivers, it feels.
We've got some members lining up in the chat. We've got Zach Taylor re-upping for another month. Thank you, Zach. Race Maven's here. Rick's here. Good morning to both of you. I think this heat wave is coming to us, Race Maven and Rick, so we can only make fun of Terry for a few more days before we're sweating it out with him.
You can we'll get rain because Silverstone's on its way.
Yeah, basically you could set your calendar by it. Silverstone week and you're going to get rained on. We certainly did last year.
There's a certain irony that the whole of UK's in a heat wave, that if we see rain at Silverstone when the week before we were sweltering in like almost 40 degrees would be quite ironic for Silverstone, to be honest, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. A lot of questions about Hulk versus Bortoletto. I want to come over
Oh,
to the budget builder here because I think where some folks are looking to move off of Hulk to Gabby is that Bortoletto can get a price rise this week. 4 points for 0.2 million, 9 points for 0.6 million. So there's a chance here that he can go up in value, whereas Hulkenberg needs a pretty iconic performance from him to gain any value. But with a DNF, Hulk sits at the price floor. Bortoletto could lose as much as 0.6 million. So there's risk reward if you move off of them. And then, of course, for those of us that are over 114 million, if you run Gasly and Hadjar, I don't know of anyone with a budget that could do anything but Hulkenberg. So it's Bortoletto, one of Gasly and Hadjar, and then maybe the two V carbs, or Hadjar, Gasly, and Hulkenberg because you're stuck at the price floor. Terry, what do you think of Audi? If we look at the upgrade list, Cadillac are still trundling along the bottom there, so I don't want to make too much out of their 10 updates. But Audi, a lot of new aerodynamic components, front wing, rear wing, and they're still looking to be nibbling around the top 10. The question is, can we count on them to finish the race? How are you feeling
Like
about Audi?
like I said, they brought their engine fix in Barcelona, and I think they were running a lot better. So, I don't want to say that have they turned a corner. The problem is they haven't got a customer team, have they? So they've only got one lot of data when they run these engines, and that's the biggest problem when you're a single engine supplier. Your Aston Martin are got the same problem with the Honda power unit. You haven't got that data. Mercedes obviously get all of their customer team's data. So if something goes wrong on the car, they can pick it up a lot quicker. They can crunch it. They can put a fix in place. And I think that some of the other teams, Aston Martin and Audi, are paying a price for that, and even Red Bull to some extent as well. So I think, yes, they got an engine fix. They look in amongst it again. I kind of feel that Racing Bulls is still a better option, if I'm honest, than Audi. But then looking at your teams, you're going to need at least one Audi driver in there to make almost anything work, aren't you? So it feels like which one do you go for? And whichever one you pick, you've got to pray they're the one out of the two that finishes, because it feels like every weekend one gets to the finish line, but the other one doesn't. It's probably the best way to describe it.
And if we were to make a bet of who's more likely to make the finish line here, Bortoletto has only DNF'd in China. He has survived the rest of these races, so he's at least doing his part to stay out of the way and not get into any trouble. Hulkenberg had two finishes in a row before the unlikeliest of DNFs when a stray rock hit the kill switch
Yeah.
of his Audi in Barcelona. So we won't take too much off him there. So we had a disaster weekend in the middle, but then a run of pretty good finishes there. So maybe we're overstating Audi's reliability issues.
But that's what takes me back. They both had the engine fix in Barcelona, and Hulkenberg's problem wasn't the engine as such. It was that kill switch. So you then go back to actually, did that fix that they brought in improve performance and look at reliability? And that Hulkenberg just paid the price with that complete freak. And if that hadn't happened, you almost could have done with a clear race for him to see if actually both cars had got to the end, what that engine fix did, rather than guessing if that stone hadn't hit, would he still crashed out or come out of the race because he has some reliability problems.
One of the other big questions I'm seeing in the chat, and also I've taken a sneak peek at Rick's lineups, a lot of movement toward Hamilton as the 2X driver. And I see this question in the chat about not having a lot of cash. Hamilton for the 2X, double Racing Bulls, double Audi, Ferrari, Mercedes. What do we think about it? I think part of the reason why so many folks are looking at Hamilton, not only was he our most recent race winner in Barcelona, but also he has the lowest target in Tier A to gain 0.3 million. Just 4 points. As long as he finishes the race, that should be a sure thing. Antonelli, meanwhile, needs 40 points to gain the same 0.3 million. And so for Kimi, that means qualifying on pole, probably winning the race. Then you still need some overtakes or fastest lap or driver of the day to get up there. So 40 points is doable, but not a sure thing if he stumbles at all tomorrow. So I could see some teams looking to get the extra 0.2 million off of Lewis. And if he has the momentum heading into his home race, he is legendary at Silverstone. So it could be a good hold for him. I don't mind Lewis, especially when you look at the latest team calculator that has him about 10 points adrift of Kimi times 2. That would be about a 20-point delta or so. I still prefer Kimi if you can find a way into it. But if you're running double Audi and Lindblad, you probably don't have a whole lot of money otherwise to get out there. I think your only other option would be something like, if you're running double V-carb, Lawson to Sergio Perez, and then that frees up enough budget to go Hamilton to Antonelli, and you could still get 5 cost cap gaining drivers. I think there's a very narrow window.
Yeah, I don't think the gap that we saw in Barcelona is probably the same here, is it? Let's be honest about it, with Ferrari being in the mix. Pirelli predicting a two-stop is what they're saying from the early data yesterday. They don't see many people trying a free stop. Obviously, it worked for them in Barcelona for Ferrari, so it's on the cards that someone might want to sort of give it a go. And 20 seconds is about the average pit loss here, so it is easy to chase down. But then you've only got a lap time, which is about 67 seconds or so. So 20 seconds in the pits plus you in and out lap makes a lot of lost time here. So I think free stop would be very aggressive around here. So I think it's going to be two stop, which then means you haven't got any offsetting strategy. You're going on pure pace, which the Mercedes look like they're currently holding it over everybody else.
The other big question I'm seeing a lot now coming up in the chat about Gasly versus Hadjar. And we dove into this with Tommy from P1 with Matt and Tommy in our preview show. We were all lining up on Gasly, but if you look at the latest sims, looks like F1 Fantasy Tools prefers Hadjar slightly over Gasly. And if we go over to the latest betting lines, looks like Hadjar again, just a little bit ahead of Gasly. Gasly projected to be just outside the top 10. Terry, let me ask you, Hadjar was complaining pretty consistently throughout all the free practices about how that Red Bull is handling turn 3. It made me almost worry that he could have an issue tomorrow if he's not totally careful as those tires degrade throughout the race. How have you changed your mind on the Gasly versus Hadjar debate?
You'd have to look for a team, wouldn't you? That'd be giving too much away. I mean, Hadjar's had a good season. He's got a lot closer to maximum than what previous teammates have got over the last recent years, but it's clear that Red Bull aren't happy with the car. They made a lot of changes overnight. Again, Max seemed a bit more happier. We always get Red Bull complaining on a Friday. I don't know why we're shocked at that anymore. It seems to be a common theme. They complain on a Friday. They do some work overnight in Milton Keynes, and Saturday it's almost like building a brand new car from scratch. There's a lot of changes on that Red Bull. There's absolutely monumental amount of drivability, how it's going to handle, what it's going to do. And I think that with Isaac, if he's in the mix, that first couple of laps always worries you, doesn't it? Like you say, with turn 3, we saw it with Kimi last year and colliding with Max. It's a real pinch point to the race, which can end your race very quickly. So you've kind of got to hope that someone like Hadjar would stay out of trouble and then work his way back to wherever he is from qualifying and start the race. I don't think he's going to be a podium threat as such, but in that midfield, it almost makes it a bit more difficult on the start of somebody who, if they've got a handling problem going into turn 3, for example, someone just put there, I don't trust Red Bull that much. I think that's the problem, is it? How much do you trust that car to actually deliver what you want it to do, especially on the opening lap on cold tyres?
I will say, too, it looks like Hadjar could have a slightly better target for price gains at Silverstone by virtue of the fact that round 6 is going to drop off. Round 7, he did a bit better. So, and he's projected to do better this week. So he could be the better bet, but there is that bit of liability. Like you said, Terry, do we trust the reliability of the Red Bull? Alpine, knock on wood, have been rock solid all season. So that's why we've been leaning toward Gasly a bit more. For me, I think there's no wrong answer. As long as you have one or the other, you're likely going to go up 0.6 million in value. You're likely going to have a great driver to set the table for Silverstone. So I'm okay with it. Either way. The poll has come back on which constructors folks are running this week. 78% say Mercedes, Ferrari. 22% say Mercedes, McLaren. I started the week with Mercedes, McLaren. And so I have an interesting decision. Basically, if I go from McLaren and Colapinto to Ferrari and Gasly, that's 2 transfers behind that I should have had in Barcelona. So kudos to those of you that made that decision in the last race.
Absolutely. Should we do some questions? There are loads of questions.
Let's do some questions.
Let's do some questions.
Does something catch your eye?
No. I just saw how many were going on there and thought, these people are going to be thinking, well, we've listened to these two talking about rubbish for God knows how long, and they haven't answered a single question yet. So
Hakon's back. We haven't seen Hakon in a while. He must have heard that Terry was back in the shed.
Exams, was it, for Hakon at one point, I believe?
Yes.
Last time we spoke.
If it's good news, Hakon, let us know how you made it out on your exams. We want to celebrate you here.
More importantly, what questions have we got, Adam?
Austin wants to know, what about the 3 chip this weekend? The 3X boost. So if you have 2 Mercedes drivers that are clearly out in front, I could see why you'd be tempted to use the 3X boost. But for me, I still want to save that for a sprint weekend. And I think Mercedes are going to still have their momentum at at least one of the remaining 3 sprints. So I would hold on to it just to see if you can get those extra points out of the sprint race. It's the limitless chip that I've moved off of my position where it has to be on a sprint weekend, but 3x boost still holding strong. Save it for a sprint.
Especially at Silverstone next week, you kind of feel a 3x at Silverstone wouldn't be the worst thing you could do. Yeah, we're only a week off. What cars we got here are going to be very similar going into next week, aren't they?
That's a great point. And then do we think the Audis can finish the race and maybe get to Q2? I think they could definitely get to Q2, considering they've both been trending around the top 10 to 12 or so. Can they finish the race? Yes.
Yes.
You know, based on recent history of how they've retired, or if they've retired, they're generally finishing this race. And if we look at what's gone into the latest team calculator, the odds of a DNF, if you just sort this from highest to lowest, you'll see the usual suspects up here. Hulkenberg's only 25% to DNF. So that's 75% likelihood that he's going to finish this race. And Bortoleto even less than that. So 80-20 for Gabby. So that makes me feel pretty good about odds makers and what F1 Fantasy Tools think are their odds of finishing.
So I saw this one. I've got 112.7 million is Antonelli, Gasly, Lawson, Lindblad, Hulkenberg, Ferrari, Mercedes. Any good? That's a really good team. I wouldn't do a lot with that, to be honest. That looks really good.
Yeah.
What else did I see? Sorry, it's trying to give me a chocolate one there. Would I move from Lawson to Hadjar or carry a transfer? Have Gasly already? I'll probably carry the transfer if you've already got Gasly.
Ooh, Lawson to Hadjar.
Lawson's what, 38% due to go up? 8.7 million.
I really like Liam Lawson, the stretch he's been on. I've mentioned this a few times in some of our videos. He has as many top 10 finishes as Leclerc, Russell, and Verstappen this season, having a really good bounce back year. And if you haven't seen his interview on the High Performance podcast, oh my goodness, it will really change your perspective on him as a driver and as a human too. So maybe there's a little bit of emotional answer here, but I like Lawson with carrying the transfer. But
that's what
should be a good bet.
I think all of those combined. I think if you've got Gasly and you've got Lawson and you got the opportunity to carry a transfer, I'm not sure taking it to Isaac is in the right mind just with that in mind. That's for sure. What else did I see on there?
Ooh, can we see your teams? I still need a few more likes before we can see your teams out.
Yeah, come on, hit the like button. Come on, don't be shy.
Let's jump over and look at some of your teams. So here is one of our newest members, Zach Taylor. So T1 is his main, T2 is the differential. You can see I like Team 1 here, a lot of cost cap builders. I think the only thing I'd do differently here, Zach, is that Franco's up at 10 million, and it's going to be harder for him to gain value this week. If you move him to Liam Lawson, this is going to look like a lot of our teams. And I think for those of you under 114.5 million, that's probably going to be the most popular build. Lawson over Colapinto and the rest of the team staying pat. As for the second team, it's your differential. So I know you're chucking up some wild ideas here. I would probably try to move out of Esteban Ocon. He seems to be the slowest of what is already a fairly slow Haas. So trying to get into another driver that could gain value this weekend, even if it's Bortoleto, and then you could move Leclerc up to Hamilton. That would be probably the better of the two Ferraris, and then a better option for cost cap gains for this $108 million team trying to move up the grid a bit. And then this last team, now you've got Franco with the guys I would have recommended before. Maybe if we come back to the team calculator here, what are some other options around Franco's price? You'd have to drop pretty far for that to work. I don't know how differential your Team 3 is. If you're really taking a punt, you could also try to move that down to a V carb. I think when we see Rick's lineup in a little bit, he's going with a Tier B constructor so that you can put maybe a Lewis Hamilton up here, see if you can get some cost cap gains and a lot of points in maybe a weird way. So that could be more of a traditional differential, super differential for your three teams.
Yeah, definitely.
Speak of the Rick, here he is. Two amazing budgets for Rick. He loves Lewis Hamilton, and he's been talking to me offline about that extra 0.2 million that he sees in Lewis over Kimi if Kimi can't totally stick every session this weekend. So I like the approach here. Gasly Hadjar could be really good for points and cost cap build. This first team here looks like he's just trying to build a ton of cost cap. could be over 2 million in it for him this week. So I like this approach. It's differential, but if you've seen this show enough, you know that Rick lives in the differential. So this is par for the course for him. Team 2, going with Kimmy Lewis. I would probably chuck the 2x on Kimmy, because then if something befalls Lewis, then all of a sudden your teams are just totally in the doldrums this week. So at least...
Actually, Rick, just chuck the 2x on one and the 3x on the other with that one. Just go for it.
Oh, that
just
would be something else.
If you're going to do it, just do it.
I do agree here. V-Carb for the cost, probably the best tier B constructor. I think Alpine are a bit too expensive. They're actually close to approaching tier A if they keep up this streak of cost cap gains. So I like V-Carb for the value if you're going to do something wildly different like Rick has here. And then Race Maven, Team 1 is her main league. Team 2 is the FanAmp Members League. And Team 3 is just for random leagues. I like what she has here for this first team. I probably wouldn't change anything. 111.5 million. You probably can't do much better all the way around the horn here.
Yeah.
So I'd keep this first team. The second team, basically, like I mentioned a moment ago for Zach, I would probably move Franco out for Liam Lawson. Cheaper. Yep. Probably higher upside in terms of points and cost cap. You're stuck with Valtteri down here, 104.9 million. You probably have to run 2 bottom drivers. Valtteri can only lose 0.3 million before he hits the price floor. So you can take some solace in that, but he is almost a 50-50 reliability risk according to the latest betting odds. Last lineup here. Yeah, I think, again, you're probably about as good as you can be without having to make some real sacrifices. You could pull a Rick. If this is random leagues and you want to do something really wild, move Ferrari out into a V-Carb, get Valtteri up or bring Gasly up into a second tier A driver, and then you've got something that's really out of the ordinary.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you, Race Maven. I think there was another 5 memberships they gifted as well. So
really?
Yeah.
Too busy looking at the lineups over there.
Yeah, I think Michael managed to become a recipient of one. So yeah, thank you, Race Maven. Appreciate that.
Fantastic. Well, the memberships are flying. So I'm looking forward to seeing those newest members and having your lineups in the league here. Let's see. How are we looking for likes so far, Terry? Should we keep going or should I share my lineup?
Share in a second. Just have a look at -10 or wildcard. Take the -10. Don't use a wildcard for -10.
Agreed.
Just saw that one in there. Limitless, not limitless chip, no negative chip. There's no weather problems. We've got obviously high altitude, which is a question mark. I think you can almost make a case for no negative every single race this weekend, can't you? You know, every single one we come up to, there's a weather risk, an engine reliability risk. As the season goes on, in theory, the engines will get a lot more reliable because they've got used to it. But I think you could have made a case. I think if you've already played it, there's not many races so far this season where you may not have benefited from running that chip. So I'd say there's nothing that makes you think stands out weather-wise or anything like that. There's a natural reliability, but again, where do you spread it? The Mercedes, the McLaren, all of those points through. Audi, we've talked about how unlucky Hulkenberg was. That's just a freak. You're never going to be able to plan for that. So I kind of feel that holding on to it. Yeah, I've got in my mind something like Brazil, the weather there, sprint race in Singapore. That kind of thing makes you think that even though they might be reliable by then, they've got the potential to just be chaotic races. Even Silverstone with its microclimate of 1 minute being dry, 1 minute being absolutely torrential, that kind of thing makes me think I'm going to hold a no negative to that. That's why I'm holding on to it. But if you talk about engines alone, there's probably a case to make it every weekend.
See, that was the clue, Terry. I thought you would mention rain for Silverstone, sprint weekend, reliability. We've had 6 or more retirements in 3 straight races. That might be the perfect time to use it. So I'm keeping a close eye on the forecast for next week because no negative is in play for me as early as next week.
And also demands on the team and the cars. We're doing four races, 5 weekends. That's a lot to get these cars ready for. That's a big demand on the teams. You only need to just, not do something 100% because you're tired, someone's caught up with you, the pressure's on. All of those little things, those little gremlins that sneak in, they all play a factor. And we all sit here after these massive long weekends and go, blimey, that's a big stint, and we just make content. You imagine working in it with traveling involved in that side of things. It's a huge demand on the teams, to be honest. So I think things like that always kind of make me think when we've got big demands on us, imagine what they're going through to deliver what they need to deliver as well. So
What a big change in the schedule from what we saw in March
Yeah.
and April, where it's have a race, wait 4 weeks, have another race. It looks like the season is really underway now. I've been seeing
Ugh,
your question, Lannister. If you have one free transfer, I would still keep Kimmy. I'd consider
yeah.
Hamilton to be a differential if you have that third team that you want to chuck something interesting on, because it comes out in spades if you have that rare Antonelli issue like you had last time out. Terry won't tell you this, but his team 3, he subbed Antonelli out for Norris at the last minute, and that's his best performing team. And so it took him really high up the global league standings.
It's sometimes you just do something a bit different, don't you? I think that Lewis is someone who, if the car's there, is going to get you a podium, and then the Mercedes reliability becomes a question mark where you could benefit. So sometimes doing something a little bit different. I mean, we did McLaren last weekend, last time out for our team win. So sometimes you can do that and it pays off. Sometimes you do it and you look at it about 3/4 of the way through the race. At one point in Barcelona, I was thinking, this is a really bad move to have McLaren in as my second constructor. And obviously what happened with Kimi Ego, actually, it works out not too bad in the end. So they're moves where actually they can make or break where you are in the league currently, especially with being so close with all the points.
There was a point in that race where we were screwed, Terry.
Yeah.
We ran McLaren, and before the Leclerc retirement, there was a moment with the tire strategy where Ferrari was running 2 out of the top 3 positions. That delta between Ferrari and McLaren was something like 40 points.
Yeah.
Plus, we had Franco over Gasly, and Gasly had a 9 or 10 point delta over him. It was looking really bad for us until that Leclerc retirement. So sometimes it's some lucky bounces too.
Well, what's my rank? Oh, it's about 2,000. There's nothing worth talking about.
No, I think he's dogging it like Charles Leclerc at FP3. All right, team. So you've waited patiently long enough. Let's review the lineups. Here's what I have now, and I feel really good about this team. I had 3 free transfers. I had to move McLaren out for Ferrari so I could get that extra 4.4 million to finally bring Pierre Gasly on my team. I had this option of Gasly versus Hadjar, like so many of you have in the chat. I picked Hadjar to maybe have a little bit more of a reliability issue. Gasly's a little bit safer. Hopefully that doesn't blow up in my face. So Gasly's on the team for now. Lawson, Lindblad, Bortoletto over Hulkenberg. One, because I can afford it. I want to see if I can stretch my lead with respect to points with Gabby. But then also, of the 2 Audis, Gabby's the only one with a real chance of actually gaining value here. So we could have 4 Tier B drivers go up in value this week, all contending for top 10 positions. So it feels like a good value. Also points combination too. So feeling really good about this team. Terry, any initial thoughts?
No, it's pretty straightforward. I think it's very similar to mine. It's not the same though. You can have a look at mine. But there is a lot of movement to make on it, because if you bring in McLaren, I know we had McLaren start the week, but it's a lot of money for what I don't think is going to be too much difference between the 2 constructors. I think that's the thing. By not having McLaren and dropping it down to Ferrari, it feels like you get quite a lot of budget to play about with back, and also you can then make the changes you need to, hoping that Ferrari, that Charles actually has a good race, gets into it when he needs to, and they get ahead to the McLarens. It feels like Lewis is going to be ahead, doesn't it? So if Charles can get in the mix, like you said, at one point in Barcelona, it looked like he was, then it'll pay off, won't it? So.
And I'd love just one good Ferrari pit stop, even if Leclerc is down P7, P8. One good Ferrari pit stop can erase all of that and put us in a good spot. Terry, is your lineup up?
It should be.
Let's see what we have. All right, Terry. Always the contrarian. You've gone Hadjar where I've gone Gasly. Talk us through this one.
I just want to be different. That's it.
He actually heard me say Gasly and he's just thumbing away.
No. I was actually keeping on the news, make sure we didn't have any disasters. Now I decided to go for Hadjar. Maybe it's because I'm still sore about what's happening with Gasly and points and everything else, and people trying to bring him in and all sorts going on with it. So I want to see Isaac do well. So I kind of went with that. Liam Lawson, same as had him before, like I said, and you know what? Actually, it feels like it's a really good move to keep Liam in. I think Racing Bulls are performing really well at the moment. So yeah, and then Kimi obviously is a main 2X driver. Hulkenberg was in there anyway. So yeah, it's quite good.
Fantastic. Got some chatter in the chat. Race Maven's going to see Godsmack tonight. Oh. Make sure you throw up the horns for me when they play Awake. Been listening to that song since high school. Love me some Godsmack.
Someone wishes they could afford Bortoletto over Hulkenberg.
And the other thing too about my lineup, if I can go back to it for a minute, there's been a lot of movement in the creator community around this too. I really trust Porsche F1. He was the runner-up in 2024, top 3 finisher in the US League last year. He laid out this team earlier. I don't know if he locked it in, but he noted the cost cap gain potential of Bortoletto being an advantage over Hulkenberg, and that alone being enough to not run Gasly and Hadjar. I can only run Gasly and Hadjar with a -10 and with Hulkenberg. This is the pain of having Colapinto and McLaren last weekend. So
Yeah.
if I had that extra transfer back, that probably would have tipped the scales for me because I'm at 115.1 million. I would probably then run Hadjar over Lawson, but not for a -10.
In terms of from the track, I saw that comment. I'm not hearing anything in terms of major problems for anybody. Unless someone's got a TV screen, which might be a bit different, but certainly nothing feels like it's a drama heading into the last part of the show, he says.
Good news so far. Terry, worst team.
Worst team, 2 Cadillacs, 2 Aston Martins, and then you can pick someone else in there, really, can't you?
I feel like it's a Williams these days.
Williams,
they're so bad.
Alex Albon.
Oh my goodness, they're terrible. So
hopefully
they get it working soon, but I would stay away from Williams.
Writes itself, doesn't it, at the moment, unfortunately.
It really does. Hakon's running the same team as me. That's fantastic. I wish us both many points. Matthew wants to know, with only 2 transfers and one being McLaren to Ferrari, is both Audis, Lawson, and Gasly fine? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's totally fine. I wouldn't take a -10 if you had the extra budget to go to a double V carb or something. I don't think there's that many points between it.
Oh, here's an interesting question. What would you say is a good amount of budget to be at right now at this point of the season? Wow. That is an interesting question.
It's tricky, right? Because more is more. You're going to be closer to a proper 4A lineup. I laid out in the final thoughts video that the first 4A lineup that I feel comfortable with is around 120.7 million. That's Kimi, Lewis, double Audi, and Lindblad with Mercedes and Ferrari. And a lot of us are pretty far away from getting there. Some teams do. They try to look for the fattest budget possible where they sacrifice points and they run tier B constructors and they do all these things. So I think we still have to run a balance. If you have $119, $120 million budget, you probably don't have a very good rank because you've been sacrificing points. So I'm still trying to just nibble at the cost cap gains when it makes sense. And when it's time to go all out for points, which you're going to see me do probably next week for a sprint weekend, then go all out for points and just keep both levers as even as possible. As far as what is good, I think we're finding now that the line for Gasly and or Hadjar is around 112 million or so, and then Gasly plus Hadjar is 115 million. So I think those are the jumps between the different types of lineups we're seeing this week. If you're looking for goalposts,
yeah, I mean, ironically, my team 3 is the best, but certainly hasn't got the best budget. So yeah, it's a trade-off all the time, isn't it, to what you do? So I think it's in a great position, but in terms of the budget, you'd sit there and go, actually, could I prefer a bit more budget to do a lot more with it now? Because I'm kind of stuck in what I can do with it now. It becomes very limited in terms of the moves I can make. There's not a lot of pivoting you can do. And in fact, I think when I looked at it for this weekend, I haven't even used the free transfers because there's nothing on there on the table budget wise to make them. So it's kind of make one, possibly 2, roll one, go with it, that side of things.
And Mexus brings up a good point in the chat. They had a bad limitless play in Canada. Part of what launched a lot of our budgets as high as they are was just a really fortunate streak of Australia and China. We gained a ton of value. Then we were able to play limitless in Japan, roll those budget gains over for a third week, and we had a really good use of limitless. Then all of the best weekends to play limitless tend to not work very well. Monaco, we had so many freak retirements and weird things. Mexus played it in Canada and it didn't work out well. So I think part of it is just lucky or unlucky breaks with a chip like limitless that can allow you to roll some of those cost cap gains ahead or completely stop the momentum.
Ivor Plus has got an interesting question. Miss FP3 got McLaren. Why is Ferrari McLaren the stronger default? I think the idea is that Lewis is going to perform above the 2 McLarens and that Charles has got the potential to get in amongst it, and it frees up your money to bring in the likes of Gasly and Hadjar, that side of things. So I think that's where the sims are looking at when they calculate it. They're looking at, okay, you'd argue that the McLaren partnership looks a lot more solid than what the two Ferrari ones do, but also you've got the reliability issues potentially in there as well. I think that's playing a part in it, but I think it's what you gain in terms of the money you can spend elsewhere compensates by having them in. That's kind of the way I've read it, and a bit how I use it to my working out. Like Adam said, by moving it back to Ferrari, it's allowed us to make some other moves and bring a Gasly or a Hajar in, which will hopefully get you that price increase heading into a sprint weekend where you can do a bit more with it. So I think that's the reason behind the sims on it, not because there's an overwhelming urge that both Ferraris are suddenly going to come to life with a new engine update and be ahead of the McLarens. I don't think that's going to be the case. But Lewis is looking strong. He looks really comfortable with that car currently. And any improvements are good, aren't they? Let's be honest about it. So,
and also too, if there's a lineup that F1 Fantasy Tools suggests for you, and you think maybe it's considering something that I'm not, or I just really don't want that driver, and you can have the checks or the X's, and it will include or exclude certain assets from your team and all the builds that it shows. So I have to do this from time to time, especially at the beginning of the week when it hasn't updated its sims. I want to try to force drivers into the best lineups and see how it looks from a budget perspective. So you can toggle with that too.
Yeah, and absolutely. Mex makes a really good point about Lewis, fastest lap driver of the day, another strong performance. And you kind of feel that with the feel-good factor that's around Lewis at the moment and Barcelona, that if he puts up a performance, we find this, we've been saying, you've had it with Max, didn't we, in Red Bull, that once they're dominating, they don't tend to get driver of the day. People like that challenge that comes by other people trying to take it to him. So in driver of the day votes, it tends to go a different way. I think you remember the record was, I don't know how many times did you say, what does Max have to do to get driver of the day at one point, wasn't it? It was silly. We were just sat here going, this is just unbelievable. How has he not got driver of the day? And then
George Russell still only has one ever.
Yeah. And then last year with him and George, wasn't it, in Barcelona? Matt's got driver of the day. We were like, what on earth is going on there with that incident? So yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you one thing that does sometimes play true is drivers in their home race getting driver of the day. And if Lewis has a podium performance at his home race, I can see him getting it. If it's, say, a Lewis P2 versus a Kimi P1, I can see Lewis getting driver of the day in that case.
I think there's a TV direction as well. I think that, in home race, the drivers get more footage from the TV direction, more in the build-up. I think there's a subliminal messaging that goes along with some races and some drivers and how they're sort of covered over the race weekend, which goes some way as well, doesn't it? We're out speaking too much about what media does and how it influences things. What else we got? We got Hajar. Someone's gone Gasly or Hajar again. It feels like it's a coin toss. Pierre tends to be keeping his nose right out of trouble a bit more than what Isaac is. I've gone for Isaac. Adam's gone for Pierre. So that kind of gives you where our head's at.
And then Lannister asks, I have your team, but I can bring in Hajar without the -10. Lannister, if you can bring in Hajar instead of where I have Lawson without a -10, I would do that.
Yeah.
Just enough juice in getting the cost cap gains. He's a little bit safer, although I think Lawson can still do it. And then he should be safer at Silverstone next week for cost cap gains because he has a pretty low threshold once again.
Is it worth taking a -10 to go from McLaren to Ferrari to enable 4A next week? I probably would say yes, actually. I would say yes. Adam would say no. I would say yes. I'd say do it. Lock it in.
I would say, okay, I have two concerns with this. One is taking a -10 means you've already used your free transfers on drivers. I wonder if there's a way we can save you. I went from McLaren to Ferrari, so I like the move of McLaren to Ferrari, but then were there driver moves that maybe we could talk you out of so you don't have to take the -10? Yeah. And then the second thing that triggers me is a 4A next week. Either you have an enormous budget or you're going to be rocking Stroll, Valtteri, Hulkenberg in your 4A. That's going to take years off your life.
And then you probably need to do a budget building rather than 4A transfers, to be honest.
So let us know which flavor you have there to make sure we steer you in the right direction. I think we agree Ferrari over McLaren this week. They free up 4.4 million to spread out through your drivers, but is there more to it than that? Let us know.
I wouldn't personally take a -10 to go from Lindblad to Lawson. I don't feel that's a good use of a -10.
Agreed. Lindblad, the more likely to go up in value this week too.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, outside of fancy, who do I think is going to get pole position? Kimi. I think he's looked on it all weekend. But then I think track limits is going to play a part. Watching FP3, a lot of track limits being deleted. So I do think track limits is going to be crucial. And normally is around Austria.
They've added those gravel areas to try to stop you from really riding the line, because there was a year where things got really out of hand. But it'll be interesting to see if that sends anybody off to maybe a premature end to the session, which could throw some
still turn 9 and 10. Yeah, still has that issues right now. No news from the track. Adam, what about this one? Someone's confused. You just changed your previous recommendation of keeping Lawson and carry a transfer.
Okay, so I guess let's come back to the question then. Is it
what are you going to do with the extra transfer in Silverstone, isn't it? I think ultimately where are you trying to go with your team? If you've got a free move that you've got in your mind to maybe go to a 4-way or something in Silverstone, then that extra transfer will come in. I think when we sit and look at it logically, I think if you haven't and you're trying to build budget, then actually bring them in hope that both go up. Hajar and obviously Gasly, and you'll gain the extra budget, isn't it? I think it's as simple as that. Are you trying to make a 4-way in Silverstone and you've got the budget already, or are you trying to increase that budget? If you're increasing budget, then don't leave the transfer on the table. Do it that way. I think that's probably the easiest way to describe it.
Lannister, one thing that has between your two options, I think neither of them are bad, which is probably why you've seen me lean one way or another on it. I've started leaning toward Hajar in the last few minutes because every one of these live shows I'm in with our friend Pop Pan Man Tom, who I'm trying to get back on this show sometime in the month of July. And now he's leaning more toward Hajar. He thinks that, like I mentioned at the top of the show, there are more overtakes in it for Red Bull than what the sims are recommending. And perhaps Hajar is a big beneficiary of that. So I've gone from maybe 60-40 roll the transfer to 60-40 put in Hajar over Lawson. But it's so close that it's not one of these things where I think you'd be terribly out of sorts one way or another. So apologies for the two directions.
Yeah, we've got this one. I could afford this team with a -10. Antonelli, Lindblad, Gasly, Hajar, Hulkenberg, Ferrari, Mercedes, instead of Antonelli, Hajar, Lawson, Lindblad, Bortoletto, Ferrari, Mercedes, but without the -10.
So this feels like a similar question.
Yeah.
But one of them is Hulkenberg, Gasly, Hajar. The other is Hajar, Lawson, Bortoletto.
Yes. Yeah. So I think they're saying with the -10, they can bring in both Gasly and Hajar. Without the -10, they're obviously sticking with Hajar.
So, Alexandra, I had a very similar toss-up with my team and went with the no -10. For me, it was Antonelli, Gasly, Lawson, Lindblad, Bortoletto, Ferrari, Mercedes without the -10, but pick whichever one of those guys you like best. But I went no -10, only one of the Gasly Hajar duo.
Yeah. And to be fair, I thought the same when I looked at it. Budget-wise, it didn't work anyway, but looking at it, I just thought I'd bring in Hajar as a bit different to Gasly. Sainz is currently 9th for points per million. When does he become viable? Since for the same price, Gasly and Hajar are more enticing for now. How much more does he need to drop in price?
It's tricky because right now he's sitting at 12 million. So he's at Hajar Gasly range, but not nearly contending for points as much. So Sainz, I think this is 2 years in a row now where he's been really, really overpriced based on his Ferrari days. And we have to wait for him to sink a lot of value before we can start trusting him again. I would probably want to see him either down around 9 million or so before I trust him. So that would be many 0.6 million drops from now. Or what I think is more likely, a big turnaround from Williams. Some big upgrade packages that continue to strip weight off the car without sacrificing performance. And Williams are back around the top 10. Then I could see Sainz as a cheaper replacement for Gasly and Hajar when he's contending with them. So I think that's the more likely outcome there.
If I'm running Hamilton next week, should I swap Antonelli to Hamilton now or roll a transfer? I would say Antonelli's looked better than Hamilton this weekend. So I would say probably keep it based on what we've seen so far.
Terry Lannister wants final answer. We've gone one way, we've gone the other. I'm going to say go Gasly Hajar, don't carry the transfer. And there's just enough evidence in the last 30 minutes of what some teams, both in this community and in the creator community, are doing that make me feel better about it. And then also, I think you're not going to need 3 free transfers at Silverstone because you're probably not going to be able to afford a 4A lineup yet to use a lot of transfers. These guys, assuming they all finish the race, are going to have good price gain targets again next weekend. So I think you're probably going to only use 1 or maybe even 0 transfers next time out. So final answer, run them both.
Yeah, definitely. Gazelic K is having a meltdown somewhere. Bortoletto or Hulkenberg. Let's see if we can help. I know that the poll's been going on as well, but so 52% are currently saying Bortoletto, 48% are saying Hulkenberg.
It's so close. Hulkenberg has no risk at the price floor. But he does have risk of being slightly more likely to retire based on recent history. Bortoletto has some chance of gaining value. So it's what is your appetite for risk? If you really want to protect your cost cap, then Hulkenberg can't lose anything. If you want to roll the dice a bit, that's what I've chosen to do, is roll with Bortoletto.
Jared the Real has got a real conundrum. They said what to do. They're so bad. They've only got 93.2 million. Just go all out and have fun.
Yes. There's a few ways you can handle this.
Yeah.
One is to go with a tier A, like a top 4 constructor, and then a cheaper constructor, one really good 2x boosted driver, and then just sort of make the rest work with your lineup, like a Kimi and Kimi and Mercedes with V-Carb or Audi, like something really cheap at the bottom, and then just fill up the rest of your team with midfield drivers. The other thing I've seen teams do is just go to F1 Fantasy Tools' budget builder page, get the biggest budget builders you can, and just fatten your team up for a mini league later in the season. And you're not contending in the global league at that point. You're just going to crush it when the likes of an Alpine or a Cadillac run a featured league later in the season.
Yeah, and we've also seen in previous years where sometimes there's like second half leagues and stuff as well, isn't there? So it's worth bearing that in mind as well. We haven't seen anything yet, but you never know with what happens. So I think budget building for now and just have a bit of fun with it. Yeah, maybe use it. I used it a couple of years back. I had the same problem where I didn't play the game very well. I didn't budget build. I used to just pick what I wanted to. And even though my scores were absolutely rubbish, I have fun every week with it, to be perfectly honest. Now I play the boring game and budget build and stuff. And Adam testify, I'm not a fan at all.
He's playing within the rules though. I appreciate it.
Yeah. It's one of those, isn't it? Why does Fantasy does this? Had three free transfers, made changes, said 2 free transfers used, but after confirming transfers became 0 out of 3. On the screen, it will say you've made a transfer if you've done something like change your 2x driver as well. So bear that in mind. It plays a bit funny, does Adam, with that?
There are a few little glitchy things. I think Lucas found one of them. One is you can, in the preview screen before you lock in your lineup, it sometimes might not say you've used all your transfers or that you're taking a transfer penalty, but then once you confirm your lineup, it does. The other weird thing is once you've locked in your lineup, sometimes it doesn't calculate your remaining free transfers properly. You have to either reset the page, go to a browser instead of your app, or vice versa.
Come out of it and back in.
It will ultimately do whatever is right. It's very rare that they actually jip you a free transfer when you have one. So
right, let's answer some of these questions because their time is running out. Change Colapinto to Haja, Bortoletto to Lindblad. Should I take a -10 for Ferrari, keep McLaren, or change a driver back to get Ferrari? I would say keep McLaren if you've done that already. If you've got that in there, I'll be tempted to keep McLaren. Maybe it's a little bit of a difference as well.
If you could afford those other moves, Colapinto to Hajar and Bortoletto to Lindblad, if you could afford those moves without taking the -10 and can keep McLaren, I would do that.
Yeah, that's what they said they've done. So they've changed Colapinto to Hajar, Bortoletto to Lindblad. So should I take a -10 for Ferrari or keep McLaren or change a driver back to get Ferrari? I think keep what you got. If you've done that without a -10, then roll with it and see if McLaren, can upset the apple cart a bit. I've got Ferrari, Mercedes plus Antonelli, Lawson, Lindblad, Hulkenberg, Colapinto. Swap Colapinto with Bortoletto, ? I've got a budget of 109.9, so we'll be leaving 4.7 on the table. Feels a lot to leave on the table. for that.
Antonelli, Lawson, Lindblad, Hulkenberg, Colapinto. Swap Colapinto with Bortoletto. The only good news is you would have a lot out there for a final fix if something crazy were to happen.
Yeah.
That's plenty enough to move Ferrari to McLaren if you want to try something differential.
Yeah.
4.7 million. I don't know how many transfers you've used at this point, though. If it's just the one with Colapinto for Bortoletto, 4.7 will get Lawson into Gasly, no?
Gasly or Hasher, wouldn't it? Because they're about the same, aren't they?
Lawson's at 8.7. The other two are at 12. In the 12. So that's probably what we do with the second move is Lawson to your choice of Gasly or Hadjar with the Colapinto to Bortoletto move.
Apologies if you already mentioned it, Hadjar or Gasly. If I don't have it either, but would have one of them, I think it's a coin toss. Hadjar is most likely, according to the tools, to go up in price on what Gasly is currently. So if you're looking for what the fancy tools is predicting, go with Isaac. Alpine seem very reliable at the moment in the middle of that pack, so I think it's just a personal choice on that one.
Agreed. No wrong answers.
No. Shall I replace Hulkenberg with Lawson, meaning that I only have 2 transfers next race? Yeah, I think you'd be fine with 2 transfers going in Silverstone and sprint weekend if you could make that move. Yeah, do that. I don't think you need to roll one with that.
There's a chance that Liam goes up in value. No chance Hulkenberg does.
Yeah, exactly. So Sergio has put Gasly plus Lawson plus Lindblad, Hadjar plus Bortoletto plus Lindblad, Lawson, Gasly plus free transfer to the UK. I need you to make head or tail that one, Adam.
Like you say that one more time.
So Sergio Alves 390.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Gasly plus Lawson and Lindblad, or Hadjar plus Bortoletto plus Lawson and Lindblad. That looks pretty good. Gasly, Bortoletto, Lindblad, Lawson, plus a free transfer.
Oh, number 3.
Yeah. So basically, Gasly and a free transfer versus Hadjar. I'd take Gasly and the free transfer because it's basically a toss-up.
Yeah.
I'd pick number 3, Sergio.
No, you're fine. Will has tea. The intro's just you got 2 minutes yet. Don't panic.
Do you have any unanswered questions, Will?
Yeah. Has anyone got anything they need before they lock their team in? More importantly. So
if Bradley ran Russell last race, should I change him to Antonelli? The poll says I probably should. It's a differential that I think could work. Those two Mercedes are both fast. Russell proved on Friday that he has the pace where he could top Antonelli. So if it's one of these things where you're not leading your league, you're trying to chase, you're trying to do something the leader's not doing, I think Russell over Antonelli is one way to do
that. In option 3, Lindblad or Lawson. Sergio, I would go either.
Lindblad has the better odds of going up in value.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Lindblad. I mean, he could avoid a 0.6 million drop with the DNF depending on how things shake out.
Alexander's running Hadjar just like me. That could go one of 2 ways. Let me know next week.
We shall
I know
see.
personally.
I just read Chef Smoke's post and I thought they said I went wild card to Kim and Lewis, which is a wild card enough, but Kimmy and Lewis. And so Chef Smoke went with the proper 4A, and I imagine you're gonna have to take some heartburn medicine throughout the weekend with Hulk, Bottas, and Stroll.
Wow.
But that could be if they finish the race. That's an epic result, though.
Absolutely, if that pays off. Gasly or Hadjar, Hulkenberg or Bortoletto. Bortoletto is more likely to go up. Hadjar is more likely to go up. If you're looking for what the tools are saying, go for a Hadjar and Bortoletto for price gain.
We have an Alessandra. Oh, we have an Alexandra and an Alessandro. I thought it was the same question we saw earlier.
You know what? I thought the same.
I've picked Gasly and Bortoletto. I think there's no wrong answers over Gasly versus Hadjar.
I've got Hadjar. Just be different.
So it depends on which one of us you love more. 1 minute left.
Yeah.
All right. It's time to put a pin in this one. Thank you all so very much for watching.
Thank you.
Terry and I are turning it right back around to preview Silverstone, a race that we were at last year. Terry's home race, Lewis Hamilton's home race, and a sprint weekend. So we have a lot to unpack. Terry, any final thoughts for Austria?
I'm going to kick open my door and get some air in here before I absolutely, roast, because I feel like I should turn over and do the other side now, to be honest.
Stay cool, Europeans. We'll see you next week.
See you next week. Cheers, guys.